שיר המעלות, אסיין על הגרים, מאין יבוא עזרי. עזרי מעם אדוני, עוז השמים והארץ. אל ייתן למות רגלך, אל ינום שומרך. הנה לא ינום ולא ישן, שומר ישראל. אדוני שומרך, אדוני הצילך, עליית ימינך. יומם כשמש לא יככה, וירח בלילה. אדוני שמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך. אדוני ישמור את צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד העולם.
Kol omer kra va'amar ma'ikra, kol habasar chatzir, v'chol chasto ketzitz hasadeh, yavesh chatzir novel tzitz ki ruach Adonai nashvabo. Achen chatzir ha'am, yavesh chatzir novel tzitz, u'devar Eloheinu yakum li'olam. A voice says, cry out. But I ask, what shall I cry? All flesh is like grass, and all of its beauty is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, and the flower fades, when a wind from God blows upon it. Surely, therefore, people are like grass. The grass withers, and the flower fades, but the word of God endures forever. LeDavid mizmor l'Adonai haaretz umloa tevel v'yoshveva. Ki hu al yamim yesada, v'al nehorot yichonaneha. Mi ya'aleh bahar Adonai, u'mi yakum bimkom kadsho. The earth is the Lord's, with all of its fullness. The world is the Lord's, with all of its inhabitants. Who may ascend the mountain of the Lord? Who may stand in the holy place? She who has clean hands and a pure heart. She will receive a blessing from the Lord and a just reward from the God of deliverance. Your mother didn't have an ATM card, and she didn't go to the cash machine. She wanted to walk into the bank and talk to her teller and conduct an in-person, face-to-face interaction. It was always, for your mother, it was always the human element. It was the human connection. It was the contact and the mutual interaction with another human being. And if you teased her about going into the bank instead of going to the machine, she'd say, I've got time, right? I've got time. We all live with a certain amount of time in this world. And she gave all the time she had for the things that were the most real to her. A relationship was real to her. A moment created with someone, that was what was real to her. A memory was real to her. I love the way she would very easily, I mentioned this to you, she would bring your father into the conversation because his was a memory that was very, very real to her even years after the fact. She brought him forward with her as she continued to live her life. For your mom, it was always about relationships. She was a unifier. She was a connector. She was a bridge. She wasn't naive. She knew that there's conflict in the world, but she worked hard to bring people together in her life. And she was the same to everybody, a warm and a kind and a pleasant spirit. Her spirit and her love of people and her love of life was ever present. I think one of her strengths was that she knew what was real. Some people think of real as being the things that can be touched and the things that can be measured and things that can be weighed and valued, like this desk or this room or this wall or a piece of land or a piece of jewelry. Those are things that are defined as real. But your mom, she didn't really care about jewelry and she didn't really care about clothing. Those weren't the real things to her. She wasn't fancy. She always looked nice, but she wasn't fancy. She put on no airs. And she literally would give you the sweater off her back, or the shirt off her back. It didn't matter to her. She didn't need those things. What was real to her was having the right optimism, was having the right spirit, and not being judgmental, and being caring, and being welcoming. That was what was real to her. And showing love to those whom she loved. Listen, yesterday was Mother's Day, and I know you spent the whole day thinking about your mom. And when you talk about your mom, you're also speaking, the two of you, about yourself, because you are in her image. When we talk about your mom as being cheery and bright and non-confrontational and pleasant, your family, Bart, thinks we're talking about you. And when we talk about your mother being very content and being very satisfied with her life and being very grateful and appreciative of what she had, your family, Peter, thinks we're talking about you. A mother can be a great teacher, and she certainly modeled those qualities for both of you. She was easy to love. Helen was gentle. Family was everything. And she made the effort to keep in touch. She was the hub which kept holidays together. And that's the way it had always been for Helen. She had been raised in a close family, close to her parents. Her parents had immigrated here from the old country. She was one of 5 children and the only girl. And she and her siblings continued to be in touch throughout their lives. And then she built her own family with the man of her dreams, with your father. She fell in love with this man whom she had gone to Sunday school with years before. They fell in love. He went off to war. They wrote letters throughout the time of his service, and upon his return, they married. Your dad was charismatic and charming, handsome, and they clearly adored each other. She did everything she could to be there for him and be supportive of him, even skiing, right? They socialized, they made wonderful friends, and they built a life together that centered on their kids and also on their life at Park Synagogue. Michelle, you felt she was the most altruistic person you'd ever met. She lived in order to give. And Todd, you spoke about how engaged she could be with your own friends, with your peers, that youthful energy that she never lost. You saw it in the way, you all saw it, that youthful energy, in the way she taught swimming, as she did for years. She was always physically fit. Her years at Camp Modin, I think later in life, Tai Chi. You saw it in the way that she loved music, her singing, her love of show tunes. You saw it in the way that she would take you shopping, Ashley, and made sure you got everything you needed before they were done. She simply had an energy and an engagement with life and an optimism that never went away. And I must say, it's not automatic that Helen would be optimistic. She was struck with polio in the 1950s. She was basically told she might not make it. Her beautiful and fulfilling relationship with Danny was a dream, but it was cut short. She was a widow in her 60s, and she never felt like doing any serious dating after that. And of course, she lost your sister Jill, and I know Jill's family's here, and we love the fact that we could greet you before Dana. She lost Jill while Jill was in her 30s, and it was a devastating and a crushing loss for her that did threaten to take away that positive spirit. But each time she found the way, and she found the courage, and she found the focus and the love of life to move forward, and even do so with contentment. Stephanie, you said when you walked into your grandmother's house, she had items in there that you never saw anywhere else. And you loved to be there, and she loved having all of you, her grandchildren. You gave her a joy and a pride. She would show up to your events, and always on time, and she was always very proud of you. And of course, she was welcoming to you, Cheryl and Susan, as her own sons began to build families of their own. I love it, the fact that you said she made candy, right? She didn't just buy candy, she made candy. Chocolate, and it's so appropriate because she added so much sweetness to all of your lives. And her commitment to Judaism, her faith, was a central part of her life. Her synagogue affiliation was sacred to her. She was a part of a generation and a group of friends that forever enriched the synagogue through their loyalty and through their enthusiasm and through their support and through their love. The plays and the couples clubs and the art shows and the kids coming together, a very special group at a very special time. I remember her from my first days at Park. Her smile was infectious, her words always kind and helpful. She would invoke, as I said, not only Danny's name, but both of your names, Bart and Peter, into conversation. She helped out, she volunteered, she attended shul regularly, and she knew very well the importance of a mitzvah. A wonderful lady. In these last years, before she faced her own memory challenges, I saw how she smiled. Bart, whenever you walked into the room, whenever she knew she was going to see you, you're a good man, and you were always where you were supposed to be for her. And whenever she called, you pitched in, and it was always there, and the reaction was always the same. And I saw it over and over again. Her well-being was clearly central to you, and you were a good son. And Peter, I know she mentioned your name many times to me in conversation. It was clear that she was very proud of you. She knew what you were doing all the time. You were always available to her, and you made it, your role in life was certainly to be in touch with her as well. From being a child of immigrants to the matriarch, seeing 1, 2, 3 generations after her being born. And she lived 97 years. I saw, just as I was getting ready, I saw Doris Day died. Did you see that? She's 97 years old. And she always played a cheery and bright and optimistic person. For her, it was a role. She has nothing on your mom. Because your mom, I know that wasn't just a script. That's the way she lived her life. She lived with a good name, and she died with a good name. Bart? It's a good subject.
So, first of all, I want to thank everybody for coming. It means a lot to the family to see you here. We appreciate the support, and we welcome you. Thank you for being here. I just wanted to go over a few things, and it won't be long. I've been to funerals before. There will only be one speaker, and you can go on your way. If you look up the words gentle, kind, loving, and selfless in the dictionary, you'll undoubtedly find a picture of my mother, and right next to that, you'll see a picture of Judy Paul. 2 peas in a pod, and one of her best friends in life. I will tell you that on numerous occasions, I talked to Mom, and she would smile at me, and she'd say to me, Bart, please do not be sad when I kick. Sometimes she said kick the bucket, sometimes she just said kick. She said, please do not be sad when I'm gone. I've had a wonderful life, and I have no regrets. And please try to say something nice about me, she said, which is not hard. Then she'd laugh and she'd hit me in the arm. I'd say, yes, I'll say something nice about you. It's not hard to say nice things about this woman. She was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in 1921. The 5th of 5 children, the preceding 4 were boys. Harry, Marty, Sidney, and Benny. And they protected her just like big brothers are supposed to. And they also teased the hell out of her, she told me. And much to her chagrin, monitored her dating life as she grew older. The family moved from Pittsburgh to Cleveland when she was a baby, and they settled at 105th Street near the old Jewish Center. And it was there that she met a young juvenile delinquent named Dan Simon. It was not a good thing, but the attraction was immediate. Mother's parents did not like him. They told, and of course they said you were forbidden from seeing him. You know how that works? Oh, you're forbidden from seeing that guy. So from then on, it was, out the bathroom window, down the steps, off the roof, down the ladder. True love cannot be denied, and it was not denied. Mom went off to Ohio State, and Dad went off to Wisconsin, but they stayed in touch throughout. And when Dad went off to World War II, which he subsequently told me he was responsible for much of the Allies' success, he said, in winning the war, along with Joe Babin. He was over there. He said the two of them pretty much did what they were supposed to do, although he was busted from private to sergeant 5 times, so I tend to doubt that. They wrote incessantly. He wrote her all the time. She would not allow me to see those letters. I took those letters, and she has them. I kept 2 of them. I'll read them at another time. I'm sorry, I couldn't put them all in there. He wrote her from Sicily, London, North Africa, and she, as I said, she would never let me read them. They married in Chicago shortly after Dad's return. They settled in Cleveland to raise a family. Bart, Peter, and Jill followed pretty quickly thereafter. And in the ensuing years, they made a beautiful life in Cleveland, centered around Park Synagogue, Edmund D. Simon Company, where he worked, and Lake Forest, where he played golf, which he liked to do. Mom nurtured the family. She really did, as only she could do, and provided a truly wonderful environment to grow up. But I will tell you one story, and I told her I was going to tell this, and she said, don't tell it. About fourth or fifth grade, I come home and I said, there's a Halloween party, and I need a costume. And she didn't miss a beat. She walked right out into the backyard, picked up a stick, came back in the house, tied a piece of string around it, gave it to me, and she said, you are a lion tamer. I said, Mom, that is so touching. I said, all that work you did. Seriously, I'm sorry. I had told her so. Anyway, she spent 6 years, six summers at Camp Moden, where she taught swimming, and of course she was really engaged here with the JCC, teaching for over 25 years at that JCC. I mean, I still have people that come up to me and say, your mother taught me to swim. And I say, who are you? And she said, I'm just some old lady that learned how to swim from your mother. I said, fine. They made many friends in Cleveland. I mean, I can't name them all, but I have to mention Joe and Jerry Bateman, who they were very close with, Elmer and Udi Paul, Millie and Harvey Klein, and there were so many others, centered around synagogue. He did tell me that Joe helped win the war. He said he really didn't do much. When he passed away in 1986, Mom was devastated. Her world collapsed. She retreated into a shell from which she really did not emerge for a whole year. But when she came out of it, she came out with a renewed vitality and vigor, and engaged with all of us. And I think the fact that we started to have grandchildren, she came out of her shell and she loved, obviously as grandmothers can do. She loved the children. Later on, the grandchildren. So it really helped her forget to some degree about the hardship she went through with her father, with her husband dying. She was a world-class swimmer. The rumor was that she actually qualified for the Olympic team in 1939, but her parents wisely decided to keep her out of Hitler's Germany. Good move. As I said, she worked for 25 years at the JCC teaching swimming. The interesting thing was when she came out of that shell, she said, I'm going to Israel, and I'm going to work on a kibbutz, and I'm going alone. And she went on 2 separate trips to Israel where she worked on the kibbutz and she tutored Israeli kids. So I thought that was quite exceptional, that she just took off for 2 or 3 months in the summer and went to Israel. Good for her. I'm almost done here. I have to mention she was vibrant enough in those later years to go to all the Dalcroze recitals, school plays, Heights Youth Theater, bat mitzvahs, bar mitzvahs, whatever was going on, and all the college graduations for all the kids. She went to Syracuse twice. She went up to New York for Todd, and wherever Stephanie was, she went there, I'm sure of it. But Columbia, she went to Columbia. She was at all of them. In her later years, she was fortunate enough to reside at Wiggins and then at the Walensky residence, where she recently was. I don't know if any of the staff is here, but they really took a load off my mind. They took good care of her. They made her final years productive and peaceful, and she enjoyed the company of the people who were there. And I had a lot of peace of mind knowing that she was being taken care of. 10 years ago, she handed me a note, and she said, Bart, she had a little smiley face on it, and it said, Bart, to be read when I pass away, smiley face. And I put, with a smiley face on. I looked at it yesterday, and I almost forgot about it. I took it out yesterday, and I read it alone in the room, and it really summed up her philosophy of life, her love of religion, her love of children and grandchildren, and just basically personified the spirit with which she lived her whole life. And I cannot bring myself to read it, but there's somebody here who can read it. And I want you to hear what she wrote, because it's really beautiful. So, and I can't get through it. So if the rabbi will do it for me, I'd appreciate it.
10 years ago. 10 years ago, sure. My darling children and grandchildren, my time on earth has ended, but my love for all of you shall never end. I hope that when you think of me, it will be with a feeling of joy in your hearts and smiles on each of your beautiful faces. My greatest wish is that you will have love and warmth for one another and give strength to each other when times become difficult. I pray that the beautiful teaching and depth of Judaism will be a part of your lives, as it was mine, and that you in turn will continue with your own beliefs and pass them on from generation to generation. Above all, be kind, be helpful, and always remember tzedakah. God has been good to me, and I leave being fulfilled and happy. So on my yard site, just think of this and have comfort. I join my dear husband now, and shall tell him what a beautiful legacy we have left on earth. Remember me with love. Shalom, Mother and Grandma. Let's rise. Yep.
Eile malei rachamim, shochayna bamramim, hametzemenochane chona, tachat kanefei ashchina, b'mahalot kedoshim adharim, כזוהר גרקי המזהירים את נשמת Helen Simon שהלכה לעולמה בגן עדן תחי מנוחתה. אנא בעל הרחמים אז תראה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים. ותצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה, אדוני גנחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר Amen.
May we all remember the worthy and the righteous deeds that she performed in the land of the living. God is now her portion. May she rest in peace. And we all say amen. Let's be seated. We want to offer our condolences to the family, to Bart and Cheryl, to Peter and Susan, to Michelle and Nick and Ashley and Brian, Todd and Stephanie and John and Dana and Jimmy, to John, and to great-grandchildren Jonah, Daniel, Dylan, and Audrey. We will be moving now to the processional that will lead us to the cemetery, where we'll have the burial portion of the service, and that will follow immediately upon our arrival at the cemetery. The family will begin its Shiva visitation, and will observe the Shiva today until 8 p.m. at the Simon residence, Cheryl and Bart's home in Shaker Heights. The address, 22025 Shelburne Road. Again, 22025 Shelburne Road, the Shiva visitation, beginning following the burial and continuing until 8 p.m. tonight. Please remain in your seats for another moment or two. The pallbearers, however, should now come forward.